Can you walk me through what the situation is at this moment?
At this moment, the system pressures are above the regulatory requirements. We did have a low pressure event earlier today, and per TCEQ regulations required us to issue a boil water notice.
When did these pressures drop below acceptable levels?
We have monitors in the system that said the incident occurred about 10:30 this morning.
And obviously, we got the alert around 6:45. How do you explain that time gap? Why did it take so long for folks to get notified about this?
I'm sorry, my dogs are barking in the background. Um, um, so what happened was we had a power disruption in the facility. And when we saw the pressure alarms, at first we thought it was a main break. Then we became notified that the disruption occurred and they had to restart the facility. And all actions were based at that time on trying to restart the plant and see what was happening in the system to make sure that everything stayed safe.
So at this point, that almost 9-hour gap between when the pressures dropped and people were notified via the media now. Is there any concern there about the gap where people probably were not boiling their water and they were going on as business as usual?
No, because the reason we're doing the boil water notice is the regulatory requirement. Our system maintained pressure. We never lost pressure fully. So there was never an opportunity for anything to enter our system. They just fell below the regulatory requirements.
So to be clear, when something like this, you're saying, am I hearing you say there's no risk to the public because of what happened or in this time gap?
It is, the boil water notice is out of an abundance of caution because the system lost pressure below the regulatory requirement. And you do want to make sure people are aware that for a time period, we were below the regulatory limit.
What can you walk folks through what are the possibilities of what can happen or why those regulatory requirements exist? What is the danger or the concern when pressure drops below a certain level for the 20 minutes or so that it was below pressure?
So I'm not the full expert on things that can enter a water system, but as I mentioned, our system stayed pressurized. So there was no risk of anything overpressuring and entering your water system.
How many people, obviously Houston is the fourth largest city in the country. Can you give me a sense of how many people this boil water notice is impacting? This isn't a neighborhood in the city. This is a boil water notice for the entire city, correct?
Correct. So the majority of the city of Houston is under this boil water notice.
And can you give me a sense of just the scale of that, how many people we're talking?
All of the city has one pressure plane. So you're talking about the entire city.
And so what are the next, do you have any idea as to when folks can go back to business as usual and not have to boil their water?
We are submitting a plan to the TCEQ. Once that's approved, we will begin collecting samples. They take about 18 hours to get the answers back, the analysis of the samples. And so more than likely, this will be lifted early on Tuesday.
And in the meantime, what does the city encourage folks to be doing during this time period? Obviously, we got school starting up tomorrow. People will be going to school. It's difficult when you have to boil your water. I'm sure districts are probably making plans as well.
Well, we had the language in the boil water notice. If you're at home or you have the ability to boil your water for about 2 minutes, just to ensure its safety. For those other people, we recommend bottled water for consumption.
Gotcha. Is there anything else that you think folks should know, or the city wants to get across to folks who may be getting this alert on their phones tonight and sort of be caught off guard or surprised by the notice?
Well, I just want people to know that, we take this very seriously. We are activated our plan as soon as we were alerted, trying to ensure that we could recover the facility and get the information out to the public.
In retrospect, are you guys going to be looking at that time gap that was, when the pressure dropped to when the public was notified again? We're talking almost 9 hours. Do you wish that would have been quicker?
Well, I wish this hadn't happened at all.
But any concern that it took that long to notify the public?
I think that it was out of an abundance of caution that we understood what the data meant and that the data was real. We didn't want to falsely alert the public that something was going on until we had validated that the data was real.
And one more question just about logistics. How do you verify, how do you get to the point where you are aware that the data is real and there is a problem that would warrant you issuing a boil water notice? What sort of triggers that?
As I said, we had monitors in the field. We actually sent people out to verify the calibration on the monitors.
And if you, I'm not sure if you touched on this off the top, but could you walk us through what may have caused this issue in the first place, or is this under investigations?
It is under investigation, but we did have a power disruption at our East Water plant. As I said, when we saw the pressures dipping, we thought we had a main break. And then we were alerted by people on staff that we actually had a power disruption.
Okay, great. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you think is important to get across to Houstonians tonight?
Just that the city of Houston takes this very seriously and we will do everything to protect their safety.